The first question, which I am going to throw over to Abhay, is can India have more effective urban planning under the existing bureaucratic and political framework?
Just one preliminary comment and then to your question, and that is what I find when I study Indian economy and so on is the major challenge we have, whether as policy designers or stakeholders even, is the lack of recognition of the mindset change and the institutions that need to be there when you're talking of urbanization. I'll leave it at that. The second thing is the nature of urbanization that is today we are witnessing in India, which we are for political reasons very seriously underestimating, and we're talking of 30-31%. If you look at the actual increase in the census towns, which is the largest segment that is growing, these are all urban spaces by whatever sensible definitions you want to do, but for political reasons we're not calling them urban, and therefore we don't have administrative setups for governing them. And finally, by way of preliminary thing, I think governance is the key to everything that we're going to talk about. Now, just very briefly on the question that you're talking about, I've been involved a little bit with planning, and I'm in the process of, and the more I got involved with this, the first thing I realized is in the first few, I was working as a consultant. I am in fact working as a consultant as an economist to the development plan of Mumbai. And when we started brainstorming, these chaps who were there were speaking a completely different language. I could not understand what they were talking about and the specific idioms and so on, and they all seemed to be dominated by the spatial urban planners and the benchmarks and so on, as if planning was all about taking a zone and providing certain per capita amenities with footprints. So my response to your question is, if we don't change fundamentally the way we do urban planning in this country, it's not going to work. And we have a chance, because with all the trunk infrastructure that we are putting in, we're going to be having to set up newer urban spaces at maybe medium or smaller towns where we can have some play rather than writing on a slate that has already been written on. That's always very difficult, and there's always what I term as the fundamental incentive problem of the political economy, that the informal understandings and stuff like that, I'm happy Meera has joined up, and that's going to have an effect on what I'm saying. But with the entrenched political parties that we have, my question when I was doing work on land markets and so on was that everyone, all the political parties and the powers that be, including opposition, there was a grand collusion. There was an informal, formulaic kind of way of how they would share the feast, so to say. What would be their incentive to change this? And I left it at that. Anyway, the question, therefore, the point about urban planning is, unless you allow for reforms, policy reforms as an inherent, intrinsic part of urban planning, and you let some poor economists and sociologists and so on come into that group when they do the planning, rather than talking of layers and fabrics and some European things and so on and so forth. For heaven's sake, I didn't ever understand why in an urban space, when you bring it down to small little planning zone, why should you have to find a zone where you would put in a healthcare clinic, when you could perhaps do it through vouchers, because there are a whole lot of private sector provisioning available. Now, they simply could not understand what I was talking about. And therefore, this dialogue is very important, and unless you bring it to that, urban planning is not going to succeed, because the little bit of work that I did for Mumbai in particular, what we found was that there was an urban development plan. We map what has happened today. And what I find is that the fundamental basic economic principles prevail. So if you make nonsensical or not so sensible, and it's not possible to predict how the production structure of the economy is going to change. So for example, if you tell me when to stop, I'll stop. I'm a teacher, so you ring the bell and I stop. But anyway, I'm coming to the end of what I want to say.
Okay.
You know, in the development plan that we had here, for example, we had Andheri when it was thought of, it was far back, 30 odd years back, more than that. And you had this Andheri, Chakala, that area marked out as outside the main city as the industrial place, and then you had the residential place around it so that the workers could walk, and all very neat story. You look at it today, what has happened? What has happened de facto is that the whole thing has become commercial. As a consequence, people there who used to live have gone off, sold off those places, and what I term as the gentrification with a voluntary twist. They've gone off to Dahisar and other places. The new metros that have come up there, now you find institutional development there. The limited point I want to make is you don't know how the production structure is going to change, how the needs of cities are going to change. Therefore, planning at a very minute level, they need to step back a bit and leave a little bit for free play and just get generally about the very specific things they should try and avoid. And that's how the planning is done today. I think the developing countries planning needs a serious rethinking. I'll stop for the moment.